All right, ladies and gentlemen, and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. Today we're talking about the Amaranth. Amaranth. My name is Chris Nelson, but everybody calls me Rotten Deadite, and with me today I have...
I'm Corey, known as Winthrian on Reddit, and Verius74 on YouTube.
I am Merlin. Sometimes people call me Alex to my face.
I'm Chris Franzen, also known as Mojo.
Oh, hi, Drew. I'm Cody, also go by Ordo Corvus.
I'm Justin. Sorry. Did you finish?
My name is Luther, also known as Darcius.
Sorry, I missed my name.
Yeah, Justin, go ahead.
Alright, Justin.
Known as Nerdak in some places and Borin on Reddit.
All right, so... have we announced what we're trying to do here? What we're trying to do is we're trying to build up some very fast lorecasts in preparation for the 1-year anniversary of Coda on February 14th.
Mm-hmm.
So we're belting out some really big subjects in a real go fast hurry. Tonight we're doing the Amaranth, which is one of those subjects that you could probably research for 6 months. And I have researched it for months.
Almost nothing.
Well, you either come up with almost nothing, or you come up with a gigantic volume of almost something. You know, like when we were hunting the Amaranth on the Bethesda forums, which by the way is a great way to learn a hell of a lot about obscure lore in a goddamn hurry. We found billions of connections to just about everything, and none of it seemed. As a matter of fact, to our credit, we actually found Anu before the big announcement, but because we weren't thinking about it with the right sort of heads, we sort of looked at it and went, "Well, that's interesting, but I don't really think," and then kind of threw it away and never even mentioned it, which was foolish, as it turns out. But hindsight's 20/20. So, can somebody define to me what the Amaranth is and how many we've got?
It's basically when you stop believing in your own reality and start believing in one you construct inside your head, and that makes it real. And I think we have 2 by now.
More like an infinite amount.
Well, we know of 2. There are probably a whole lot.
It involves sensory deprivation, and MK described it as a splitting of hairs because it always takes back from ideas of the previous dream.
Ooh, good.
Yeah, there's one quote from, I think it was in one of the Hunting the Amaranth threads. Oh, jeez.
I can't believe
I actually have it right here. That is kind of serendipitous.
That's crazy. I can't find anything in those threads.
That was kind of
I think you
weird.
were there.
To the close streamers, don't forget the Amaranth. There is one step. Okay, I'm just keep skipping that. It's the flowering of a statehood where the images you give birth to in your dream, stolen with a question mark, from the first dreamer wakes up, whales knowing free will, and begins to dream in the same way children of liberty without end. Yada yada yada.
More colorful fucking language. And so the first, what most people consider to be the first or the prime or uber Amaranth, is generally also called the Godhead. But the Godhead has been described by, I think, probably Kirkbride, I don't think in-game, as being schizophrenic or insane. What the reason why he describes it as insane, well, as schizophrenic, it's not an accident. He doesn't mean it's just plain crazy. What he means is that it's experiencing hallucinations that it thinks are real, and then the hallucinations affect the next hallucination it has. So it cascades on itself, and if any of you math majors are out there, you know that there's a thing called a resonance cascade, which is very applicable in this case, and if you're a Half-Life fan, then your ears just stood up. But that's a real, and if you are a Half-Life fan and not a math major, it's a real thing, go do your Wikipedia research. And so the Godhead's problem is that it's unable to discern reality from its own dream, and therefore its dream is effectively out of its control, in a way. But it means that all subgradient levels, all sub-dimensions of the Godhead are all related to one source. So now I think those of you at home who haven't read the children's annuad or an annotated annuad, which I will hopefully confirm, Seth, dick. I'll link to it in the comments of this video, provided I have my wherewithal to do it. And you should read that immediately, because what it does is explain the next concept we're going to talk about, which is the second Amaranth. So somebody take over from here, because my words aren't working. Somebody describe Anu and why Anu is an Amaranth and how all that shit happened.
Okay. I can field this if
Awesome. Go, Cody.
Go.
Okay. So you had these two brothers, and they were both in love with Nier, correct?
She was created from their interplay, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just by Nier was created just by benefit of Anu and the two brothers are Anu and Padme, and they're simply by dint of their existence, Nier was created. Just they had practically no choice in the matter.
Right.
Anu falls in love with Nier,
but Padme does too.
Padme did too.
They both do, but Nier immediately is
drawn
with Anu, and Padme leaves. He's just like, you know what, fuck you.
we never hang out anymore.
Yeah, he's bitter. And consequently, Nier became pregnant with the 12 worlds of creation, which is a concept that bears digging into. After or if you pause this video. Before she gave birth, though, Padme came back, and didn't he beat her or something?
He killed her or something?
He nearly killed her.
Yeah, he beat her, and Anu came back and basically fucked him up and cast him outside of time. And that's when Nier gave birth to creation. And then Anu hit himself in the sun and slept, and that is where
Can you eat some of your pizza?
Yeah, sorry. That is where Anu, as what we're led to believe, is where he starts dreaming. That's where he achieves Amaranth. That interaction between Anu, Padme, and Nier was an enantiomorphic relationship. And that was the, what was that one quote that MK had regarding their interplay?
It was a betrayal.
Yeah, well, it was the betrayal.
The requisite betrayal.
That was the catalyst, and Anu began dreaming. And the way I take it, I think there's some conflicting theories on what happens next, but I like to believe when Padme comes back and shatters the 12 worlds, that's like the first part of Anu's dream, and Anu like snaps into a state of like lucidity within his dream, and that's his final interaction with his own dream before the dream takes off. But that's kind of my own, to preface that, that's my own kind of spin on it. I'm not sure what the general consensus is among the community.
It's a complicated one.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
It seems to have a. Is it described? That's a good question, Alex. Is it described as hiding in the sun or jumping through it, or?
For Anu's case, I think he jumped through. Anu, I think, hid in the sun and slept. I think Oriel is described as fleeing to Aetherius, and I would presume that Oriel, being kind of a giant spirit still, would only go through the sun, being too big to go through the stars.
Really?
Yeah.
But,
I don't think I've heard of
Yeah,
I
and
don't know.
I think an important distinction too is like when Anu hid in the sun, it was a deeply traumatic experience, and that trauma carried through, which I think is an important distinction when we get to the new Amaranth, which is the apex of the Coda story.
Mm-hmm. Where the Amaranth is born without that trauma, right?
Exactly, and that's where the children could sing. I think Kirkbride puts it tuned against a pirate radio of heaven and hell, and it becomes its own thing, and it's made through love, and it's said to be a more fantastical place, I guess you can say.
Well, it's the difference between the Godhead's dream, which is insane, and Anu's dream, which is constantly reenacting the same betrayal and drama over and over again. And then there's and then there's the new dream, the new Amaranth dream, which is based entirely on love in every possible sense you can have. So it's theoretically at that point it's like heaven, but if you start asking me for specifics on what that's like, I couldn't really answer you.
Seems in the back of here, though.
Yeah. Well, but the thing that's like one person's heaven is another man's hell. So you have, I mean the Nords describe Sovngarde is this amazing place, but to me it just looks like a really fucking bummed out time. There's no goddamn internet.
And not to mention, it's like they fight all the time. It's like, I kind of just want to chill.
Yeah, exactly. What if I want to go outside and hang out for a little while? Have a smoke, watch the sun rise. You can't do that shit there. No, it's terrible. Have another beer and punch me in the throat. It's not an idea of a good time.
Makes me wonder what the food is, though.
That's true. If the food's really good, I could be pretty. Yeah, I mean, you would expect that banquet's probably pretty baller. Yeah, they could maybe finally get a goddamn lobster that isn't rubbery as shit. But anyway, I live in Atlanta and I'm landlocked. So what do you expect? Okay. So when we talk about the Amaranth, we're talking about a dreamer who dreams realities, and the Amaranth's personality before they began the dream directly reflects the state of that reality. This is going to lead us into probably what we're going to do next week or the week after, which is Chim, which is when the dream becomes aware of itself. But how do you guys can you guys speculate on how this fits in with the Kalpic cycle?
Oh yeah, definitely. The best way I know to say it is that if anyone's ever lucidly dreamed before, and they went to sleep and they started dreaming about, I don't know, a story, then you wake up and then you go back another night and you dream that same story but differently, and that's the way I view the Kalpic cycle.
Yeah, like reruns that are slightly different every time.
Exactly, with revisions. It's almost like who's the author of Star Wars?
George Lucas.
Yeah, George Lucas.
You shut your filthy mouth!
It's like George Lucas going back and editing Star Wars of who shot first.
Yeah, he's a dick.
Same story.
That's a really good way to put it.
That's
a really good way to put it.
Lucas sucks.
And just like the Amaranth and Kalpa, sometimes the first time you dream the dream, it's clearly the superior dream, clearly by a mile. And then the time you dream it, all this stupid shit is happening. Like all of a sudden, fucking, the damn slug is talking to the. All right, whatever. Okay.
Sometimes you dream it, and you have prequels coming. It's just like, why are you doing this? It was fine.
Yeah. Greedo's like, I quit. I fucking quit. So this is actually pretty important because for those of you who have played Skyrim and you talk about Shore and why Shore is considered to be such an aberration, it's because while the creation of Mundus appears to happen every Kalpa, and so therefore the creation of Nirn appears to happen every Kalpa, maybe not every Kalpa, but probably it's a good safe bet that it happens every Kalpa. Shore, on the other hand, apparently has not happened every Kalpa. and that's and in fact, it's probably a safe assertion to make that this particular Kalpa is the first time something like Shore has happened.
I don't know though, because I think
I don't know about that.
I don't know that either. Yeah,
there's a quote in Shore, Son of Shore. Now,
And the awful
of
fighting
course,
began again.
it has to be said that this is Nordic oral tradition, so things can be embellished. But just for the sake of this discussion, for the sake of completion.
I'm glad you're bringing that up because I'd love for somebody to do a line-for-line explanation of what the fuck is going on in that story, because I sure don't know.
I've been thinking about it. I've been reading it.
Figuring it out.
But Shore, father of Shore, he is the one in the cave that Shore, son of Shore, goes to consult with. And he says, in regards to...
is that Lorcan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, technically.
Yeah. He says, yes, and always they will be ignored. As for the counsel you crave, bold son, and in spite of all your other fathers here with me, that you create every time you spit out your doom, do not worry, you have again beat the drum of war, and perhaps this time you will win. Which it does imply that, the Lorcan spirit, or, whatever, the prime concept of Lorcan gets sacrificed every single time. But just the names in this, Shore, father of Shore, Shore, son of Shore, implies some, within the Celtic cycle, at least in Nordic tradition, a repeat in those events. But we already have a mythopoeic notion within the Mundus of every culture's gods being true. So I don't see why this would necessarily contradict with any former Kelpa. They could very well still have their different creation myths and different pantheons of gods that don't necessarily have to contradict what we might see in this Kelpa.
True, but the difference here is that what I'm trying to say is that Lorcan's creation of Mundus may have happened every time before, and Lorcan, and then the subsequent subgradiency of men or the wandering Elnathe happens every time before. But Shore, as in a man who becomes a god, is the virus. Yeah, has not happened.
Immortal?
Oh, yeah, okay, I can see that. I guess
Shore or Talos. Yeah, exactly. Tiber Septim.
Oh, Talos. Oh, okay. Not Shore. Shore was a cultural concept.
I'm sorry. Yes. If you can't tell, I know very little about Nordic traditions. So, yes, that's what I was talking about. Talos, and then I said Shore. But yeah, Talos is what I was shooting for. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that Talos has been, and so and that's one of the reasons why the Aldmeri Dominion is so keen to ban Talos worship, is because it's never happened before, and it's not supposed, it tain't natural, damn it, and and one of the reasons why I like talking about the Aldmeri Dominion so much is because I personally completely freaking agree with them. It's not the way the system is supposed to work, unless you're. But then it all starts to fall apart when you start talking about why Lorcan creates Mundus every time, and that's the theory of what we'll eventually get into Chim and all that kind of stuff. But the Kalpic cycle. You could argue that the entire purpose of the Kalpic cycle is to eventually generate a Talos, or not a Talos, to eventually generate a new Amaranth, an offshoot,
Yeah.
Because that appears to be, and if that's not the purpose of the Kalpic cycle, it's almost certainly Lorcan's decision to make every Kalpic cycle an attempt at a new Amaranth.
Here's something I just thought of in regards to like the Talos situation. I thought about it when you slipped up saying Talos instead of the new Amaranth. I think Talos was the you know, I'm brain farting on the word that I want to use here.
Right.
You know, it kept the Dominion, the Thalmor busy. It kept, if you think about it, the Patamag societies like the Nords busy, you know, supporting him, and it kind of took this, it put this being into this god role, in a sense, cultural god hero role. He could not lose, and essentially he was a virus in an otherwise circular system. And yeah, am I going like right off the rails or something?
No,
I like your little
I'm messing with Justin.
But like he was like a failsafe left behind by Lorcan and maybe arguably Akatosh. Because I think there is a quote of Kirkbride mentioning Akatosh wanting to keep his favorite Kelpa going. I can't remember what that's from. But it was to keep it going so there could be a new Amaranth down the road.
I can't understand why Akatosh would want that.
Well, every Kalpa is his favorite Kalpa, but you know.
Well, that's almost certainly Anu's explanation. Well, I'll put it to you this way.
Okay, here's I'm going off the Imperial Library forum archives. On the different time dragons, don't forget that gods can be shaped by mythopoeic forces of the Manlers. Okay, that's about Tashraka. Just like Akatosh, as we usually know him, could time scheme against his mere brother of the Nords, Elduing, to keep the present Kelpa, perhaps his favorite, from being eaten. Notice
that's
the last Dragonborn.
Pretty big, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's a pretty big maybe.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's not any bigger than any other one.
Yeah, true.
Because it's a brainwashed copy.
That's interesting. Yeah. I liked. Well, okay. One of the things that I am not crazy about the Anu Dreamer is that if you read the big reveal that Kirkbride did about Anu, there's a lot of talk about Anu rising to see his dream every day and watching over people and as a sort of a benevolent god kind of thing.
Magnus.
Magnus, sure. And in fact, you could probably start to make very strong connections between Magnus and Anu and why Magnus was the architect of Mundus and Anu's role in the creation of Nirn in the annotated Annuad.
Mm-hmm.
So,
as Magnus as Anu's proctor?
Or Magnus as, that's just what the elves call Anu, which is kind of weak sauce, or Magnus as a direct subgradient relation to Anu.
Or the Waking Dreamer.
Yeah, or it could be Anu's Mary Sue, his self-insert fanfiction.
Yeah.
Of his own, on his own dream.
Why not?
Yeah, what the hell? It's not the craziest idea I've heard.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
It just kind of reminds me of like the same way Kain was cleaved. Sort of Anu is brought up as being this destructive person in denial through Anumidium. And Magnus is portrayed much more benevolently by MK in that he's still watching through the Nemali and everything. And about Kain, how she lost Lorcan, and one part went as Kain on the Nirn, and one part became Meridia.
Right. Yeah, well, again, but this is just, we're going to see a lot of thematic echoes in obscure lore, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. It's
especially when NK says it.
Yeah, but when you have ideas like this, it sort of takes your it really messed with my headcanon a lot. Let's just say that. Because my vision of Nirn and Mundus up to that point had been basically the same as hell. of the really unpleasant and terrible place where really awful things happen all the time, and that's supposed to be like, and then when you take that and you put like a benevolent God overseeing the whole thing, it's about as hard to explain as when, you know, every 6-year-old goes up and goes, if God exists, then why do bad things happen to good people? You know. Justin, you got a question? No? All right.
All right.
Actually, hold on a second. Can anybody think of any reason why? I'm sorry, this is another one of those crazy tangents that we do a lot in this show, but I just want to cover my ass on something else, and while I got your attention, can anybody think of any example of the Altmer or the Dominion or the Thalmor having a vested interest in collecting Elder Scrolls?
Not off the top of my head, but
PvP reasons.
I mean, everyone wants to know what's in them.
yeah, but other than the fact that they are central to almost, you know, many stories, and the fact that when the White Gold Tower was assaulted and the sack of the Imperial City happened, all the Elder Scrolls disappeared.
Right.
You know.
Is that when they disappeared?
Yeah, well, they do that shit all the time.
Yeah, but not like this. It hasn't
Disappeared
happened.
more so than usual.
Right, yeah, more
Every
disappearing.
time an Elmer touches them,
No, they all disappeared. All of them from the White Gold Tower. All of them left.
It's
So-
also possible that that's where they get their dawn magics and are interested in learning more about the way Mundus is constructed, so they can take it back apart. So.
Well, I can think of reasons why they would want it, but but why they would want Elder Scrolls, but I'm mostly interested in reasons why they wouldn't. But whatever. I'm sorry for getting us off topic.
It's related. Well, it contains all the events that are going to happen during creation, during Mundus. So.
Well, arguably it doesn't, and that's kind of one of the things I was going to say about. I was going to try to lead it back to the dreams again here, was that the relationship between the Elder Scrolls and dreams is that the Elder Scrolls are predictions that don't come true unless somebody shows up and makes them happen. And
okay.
Well,
it's sort of like the
Elder Scrolls.
But the thing is, I mean, they couldn't have been there before Mundus, because I mean, physical objects, scrolls. I mean.
Well, I don't know. The more I think about it, I mean, if you read a lot about the Elder Scrolls themselves, describing them as physical objects might be a mistake.
Yeah, they're objects in and out of time at the same time.
I thought Elder Scrolls were representations of memory. So they were like memory made solid. They're because what happens is the anomaly comes in, collects all the memories, well, the songs, you know, memory, whatever, of everyone who's died. And then it brings them back to Magnus, where Magnus can archive them as Elder Scrolls.
Well, then the question would be: does that mean that these Elder Scrolls are reciting or are records of memories from a previous dream?
Well, all possible dreams, I guess. I don't know because
I just looked at them as like miniature. They're prophecy. They're just like, if one person does this, someone will do this. It's a numerological prediction, and they can or cannot come true. It's just a prediction that you read into, saying if this marker is yes, then this marker is yes, or if this is no, then this is yes.
Well, it might work a little bit better to think of them as predictive.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like or probabilities is what I mean.
Yeah, probabilities.
Right. That's what you mean. Okay, yeah. So not necessarily if A then B, but if A then probably B.
Yes.
Would I be totally out of place to bring up Schrodinger's cat in this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna call out
when
you read an Elder Scroll.
I think it's worth bringing up also the adamantium as gigantic scroll case.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I still like my adamantium as a spaceship, though. Just saying.
Me too.
Why
I didn't say that all the other.
Thank you, Cody. Yes, perfect. Exactly right, Cody. Yeah.
But since all the
But Well, what I was saying, Schrodinger's cat. They're all things that could happen, or maybe it'd be better to say they're things that will happen, but not necessarily as somebody reading the scroll has interpreted the scroll, their reading of it, and that's where you get that Zurin Arctus quote, which is one of my favorite things in all of the lores, where at the very beginning of Morrowind, where each event is preceded by prophecy, but without a hero there is no event.
Right.
Oh.
And therefore, the Elder Scrolls are your I can only call them the Elder Scrolls equivalent, which is the Bedcott formula, where it's the list of all probable. It's the formula that explains the superposition of the Elder Scroll, and then the superposition collapses to a definite event when observed by an external force, which is the player, which is the hero.
Which goes back
a little fourth wall for you there, but yeah.
If the hero is the cat.
Mm. Yeah.
The hero's the observer. The
hero
hero
person opening the box. Yeah.
He's the person who collapses the waveform and makes the thing definite.
Forces reality to make a choice.
Right. So it's either dead or it isn't. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, if that's the case, then what we can say about about every Kalpa, about every dream of one would assume Anu. Oh, hey, that's actually a really good question. When we talk about the Kalpic cycle, are we talking about Anu having another dream, or are we talking about the Godhead having another dream?
I'd say Anu.
Yeah. I say the Godhead because, again, I look.
I think for the Kalpic cycle, by this time, Anu who dreamed is divorced from the Godhead that's governing Orbis. So I'd go with the Godhead rather than Anu, but it's probably a semantic distinction that doesn't really.
Isn't Anu part of Orbis, or am I wrong about that? I thought Anu
there are two Anus. The Anu who dreamed is not the Anu who is stasis and is half of Mundus, if you look at it like a Venn diagram. So the Anu from the 12 Worlds who dreamed was the Godhead, but I think the entity we're referring to as the Godhead, like the full encapsulation of Orbis, is no longer entirely tied to the Anu who flew into his sun and dreamed because his brother killed his sister wife. So I think it's the Godhead who's in it, but I think Anu who's dreaming is still asleep, or just completely divorced from us by this point, because I remember hearing this quote a lot, where the dream no longer needs the dreamer, but I don't even know what that means anymore. It's probably just, lore's so deep.
I don't agree with the Anu well, I agree with that Anu is two things. Anu is a godhead, not the godhead. And Anu is a force of stasis. I think that's the two Anus there.
That's true.
It's worth mentioning again, if the next Amaranth made up Akavir, I mean, that's still on the same planet, that's in the same universe.
That's a remembrance of...
Are you referencing the West-East time theory?
Sort of. I mean,
I think that Akavir and Yokuda are remembrances of a dream, but they're not the dreams themselves.
I've never been a big fan of Yokuda and Akavir being different dreams.
Yeah, neither have I.
I mean, I'm okay with West and East being, different parts of time. I can roll with that. I like that brand of weird. But the dream thing is just it's a little too far-fetched for me. It doesn't fit within how I like to view the setting and the universe. And I've never really been a fan of Akavir being the next Amaranth either, just because I've always thought the next Amaranth was whatever the fuck we wanted it to be.
Right.
You know, essentially, and doing that, I think, was a little too imposing on the supposed, like, the freedom concept. It kind of trampled on it, I thought. So I'm not particularly a fan of the Akavir
Just
thing.
wanted to bring it up.
I still view
Yeah.
the Calpic cycle as kind of a petal flower, where if you follow the outside of the petals, that's your Kalpa, and then you have your center, where is the Godhead, and it just explodes in all directions. And you just kind of follow it. So they're all intertwined, but they're not. You know.
Yeah.
I kind of view
Well-
dreams as bubbles, but yeah.
Yeah, it was
Splitting
sort of,
hairs.
but then you start getting into asking yourself, well, how is it possible that, like, for example, where does Lig fall into this? You know?
Yeah.
Okay,
But those are
okay.
special circumstances.
Here's an analogy.
Okay.
Like a tree, and each, like, an acorn, whatever. Each one is we'll say it's a Kalpa. It's a chance for a possible new dreamer. And the ones that take root and form their own trees become new dreams and amaranths. And Lig happens to be, imagine a worm inside, or let's say an apple tree, just for this analogy to work, and a worm tunneling through an apple and coming out like a decayed side. I don't know, this is coming right off the top of my head. But I just really want to use the worm analogy.
Yeah, right. I was about to say, I think you're
Because
pushing
Lig.
it.
I'm reaching, but I want that worm to fit.
There are like opposite trees.
No, I would say that Lig could be like, you know, okay, here's what Lig is. Okay, okay.
All right.
Okay, guys.
You got one branch, okay, and you got two apples, like big pendulous apples, and they're hanging next to each other. Okay, they're sort of connected to each other, and then you got a worm that starts in one apple, and that's Tamriel, okay, and then it goes through one apple into the other. Okay, now the hole between the two apples, okay, so on the second apple is Lig. Okay, so you have Lig on one apple and you have Amaranth on the other, and then the same worm made both, and that's how you get Lig.
Makes sense.
The tinfoil episode is going to be great.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay.
I would like to answer that question: who is dreaming? Is it the Godhead or Anu? And I just want to say it's the Godhead because I am all are we. So Anu is the Godhead, but so is all the other Godheads, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that actually sounds pretty reasonable. That's not bad.
Sounds
Yeah.
I would agree with
That's
that.
all right.
Yeah.
Sounds
Not the crazy
manageable.
pants thing. Yeah.
But
That's pretty good.
You know,
Okay.
because who's to say? I don't want to go to mantling because it's kind of a different thing, but
Yeah.
but you know, you have one Godhead one person who becomes Amaranth. Aren't they just doing the same thing Anu is? And theoretically, Anu could just be dreaming that person's becoming the Godhead. Nice glass.
Well, I think
You
that
finally got it. Ooh.
I think that each dream is. Yeah, I saw that earlier, but I think that each dream is unique unto itself, but borrows from the Godhead's whole thing, spiel, whatever.
Okay.
So each dream has similar mythic echoes, but they're not necessarily always the same. They might still have like the enantiomorph though, and
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the anti more something you can't really get away from.
and concepts and entities like Lorcan or Sep or I don't remember some of the other ones that we don't even know about.
Well,
Yeah, maybe time and space are always existent.
yeah. You know, I think it's something, you know, like in real life, your own dreams, they're based within a certain frame of reference. That reference being real life, reality. But still leaving in to account the creative side of your own imagination. So it's an ever I think it's an ever growing bit of concepts.
The more complicated it becomes.
Yeah, I definitely I would think so. It's every dream's has the potential to grow bigger. Which I think was something that's important, which we talked about earlier about the sequence of dreams from schizophrenia to just trauma, and then to one of more freedom and love and hippie nation. Which I'm sure
just flower, man. It's a flowering dream, brother.
And we're following the dead.
Smell the tune, man.
Like a marijuana leaf, it spreads out into multiple culpas.
Yeah. Okay. 4E20. So okay, I'm curious about something that Kirkbride said at one point or another about the Kalpic cycle. Can you guys make an argument for the Numidium being a DEA agent? Can somebody make an argument for the Kalpic cycle happening within one dream? In other words, the Godhead dreams, and then inside of that dream, the Kalpic cycle happens, or does the Kalpic cycle in fact actually happen within Anu's dream, and that's the birth and rebirth of Mundus and Convention and so on? Like, where does the cycle start?
Well, don't we have it pretty much confirmed that it jumps straight back to Convention? So that would be after Lorcan already does his thing. We have the Magnagi leaving, we have the Daedra being all like, this is stupid, but secretly we're jealous, and all the Aedra are dead. So, like, I imagine for Lorcan at least, it's the absolute most traumatizing sort of experience, because every time Alduin comes and eats the world, he wakes up and his heart's ripped out.
Yeah.
Like that. That's gotta be unpleasant.
I suspect so.
Just for the record, I don't know whether or not. I think if we're all kind of thinking back to that post, World Eating 101, I think it was, where Kirkbride throws out the idea of the Kalpic cycle starting at Convention. I don't know if he wanted us to just. I'm speculating it might be possible he was just throwing out an idea for us to chew on, and that it wasn't supposed to be canon LEL, but rather just something for us to poke a stick at for a little while.
Yeah, again, I say, as far as the Kalpic cycle goes, I said both. It's
okay
because I have this kind of weird. I know it's kind of cliche, but this multiverse idea where there's a Kalpic cycle happening in a universe, but at the same time there's another Kalpic cycle happening in another dream, because when you're dreaming you kind of get bored and you're like, I don't want to observe this one right now, I'm going to go to another one.
Well, you should stick with that idea, because just due to the nonlinear nature of the time before Convention, by definition, every convention and every Kalpic cycle is happening simultaneously.
Oh yeah, they're happening simultaneously, and they end and never end. Yeah, so
yeah. So for the fact that Molag Bal being the king of the previous Kalpa or whatever it was.
Yeah, the Dro. He's the Dro king.
Yeah. Of the Dro, whatever. Dreg. They when the word previous is used, that doesn't necessarily denote a linear order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I'm gonna fly my nerd flag here a lot, but I've always had the impression that if we go with the Tez's open source lore, what if Kalpe are branches, and you can have multiple branches of a Git repository going in parallel, and
yes,
you can, even if you really want to mess with stuff, have those branches interact with each other, but they don't generally have to. So,
Mhm.
like, if Alduin is your evil Git user, he's just like, this is a stupid project. And he checks out the initial commit, and boom, new Kalpa, but it's still in simultaneous for certain values of simultaneous with all the rest of it. And it lets you move stuff around.
Explanation. I love this explanation. That is the best. It's terrific.
Thank you. Blame Dovahkiin for literally everything I say about programming practices in Mundus.
And if it wasn't for the damn Tatterdemalion mod, I wouldn't know shit about what you're talking about.
Incidentally, this idea actually made it into the new Midiad. If you can read Draconic, like in part 6, I legit describe Akatosh as a Git program.
As a Git dev.
It's stupid, but it kind of worked for what I was imagining.
Okay. It's like a 2% joke. Like maybe like 2 or 3% of the people who are watching this video right now are like, "That's the funniest shit ever," and then the other 98% are like, "What the hell is he talking about?"
I don't even know.
Did you just call me a name?
It's a repository system, okay?
Yeah, it's a versioning, depository and versioning system. Yeah.
Good news, everyone.
Yeah.
It's a repository.
I'm starting a new branch. So okay, so we've covered the shit out of dreams. Amaranth. And is there anything we're missing? How does this apply to Coda? We kind of talked about that.
Oh no, we
We're gonna
haven't.
go.
Do we want to?
Do we? Yeah. Or should we bring that up during the actual Coda cast?
I think we can
that
bring that up
should
during
be-
the CodaCast. So
Yeah, let's get all these other concepts nailed down first.
Alex, your fingers
Okay.
up.
Yeah, different nerd flag this time. I have a lot of these, I promise. So, I can do more of this for the CodaCast, but time repeats at Kalpas, right? Sort of like how music that has a coda repeats, goes back to the beginning, has different movements, and then the coda is a completely different ending that goes off into its own thing, and it's completely unrelated, and it's just lets the music go forth from there. So that's pretty much all I have to say from that. But
Right.
music, repetition, different endings. Yay.
Something to be said that those pieces can repeat as often as they want until the conductor says, okay, hit the coda.
Yeah, that's true.
For instance, and you can kind of, I suppose this is kind of digging into the coda stuff, but Lorcan as the priest, he weds Vivek and Jubal, and that could be like his signaling this new ending.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would argue that it probably works a little bit better as one member of the orchestra itself has just gone, you know what? Let's put an end to this bitch.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And generally, it's in a completely different key signature, and it just sounds insanely different. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just the last couple pieces with codas that I've played, like, the key changes, it goes from having flats to having sharps, it's a completely different sound. It's like, yeah, we're done. Just put a positive spin on it and put down the instruments.
Yeah. So we can all go the hell home.
A song
all
without
right.
end.
Is this it? Have we done it? Is this it? Did we cover?
Is there like
Amaranth?
anything else that we're forgetting that's like super? Because we always do. That's like super important
Every time.
Maybe,
Yeah.
every time. Every time we do it.
So what you're saying is we should release a coda for these videos with all the stuff we forgot.
Maybe how to achieve it in general, all that we know about that.
But yeah, what is the process of becoming an Amaranth?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's going to be complicated, and maybe we don't even fucking know. But
That's something to talk about for Coda because it's going to directly involve the metaphysics of what happens with Jubal and Vivek and why their production, why their child is the big deal and not otherwise. And also, I get to explain to people what exactly is meant by love under my will only when Vivek talks about his will. So, or her will, excuse me.
Yeah.
Zer's will? Zer's will?
Whatever system you want to use. I'm looking over Kirkbride's chat log right now.
I do want to leave this on an anecdote, though. Anecdote, maybe, if that's the correct term to use.
Anecdote?
Yeah, sure. I can English, I promise. So, for those who don't know, that Amaranth is kind of a type of flower family that grains and stuff. And one of the prettier versions is a common name for it is Love Lies Bleeding. So, I just want to throw that out there for you guys to think about it.
Right on. Yeah. That's actually a good note to leave on. This is actually comparatively short, but I told you these are going to be quickie ones. Next week we're doing either Dagoth or Chim, one of them.
Kim.
I believe it's pronounced climb. And so
It's pronounced fish.
and it's pronounced fjord. So we will see you guys in a week.
Yep.
See you next week. Bye.
See you then. Sayonara.